How's it going, guys? Welcome to another episode of Kerbal Space Program. This episode is going to be a little different than the last couple. It's going to be, the entire episode will be fast forwarded. But what I wanted to make this episode was kind of a documentary or a review of what I've been trying to do. And that was rescue our friend, I think his name was Bill, maybe? Our awesome Kerbal astronaut who got stuck on the moon. He got stuck on the moon because the physics in this game are not polished yet, and for some reason, when he was getting back in the capsule to leave, he touched the capsule, and the pod fell off of the lander, so he was stuck. I couldn't do anything with the lander, but what I could do is I could go back to Kerbin, build a new spacecraft, a similar spacecraft, with some improvements from what I'd learned on my first moon landing, and we're going to go back to the moon, and we're going to save Bill. I do run into a couple issues, which you'll see in the video, but I learned a lot. I learned asparagus staging is what you can see there. And for those of you who don't know what asparagus staging is, it's whenever you have multiple fuselages, or that might not be the right word, whenever you have multiple fuel tanks, if you have a 100-liter, this is a terrible number, but a 100-liter fuel tank, as you burn through that volume of fuel, you're getting less, the weight of that tank is becoming less and less fuel and more tank. And for every bit of tank that you're carrying that's not holding fuel, you're wasting energy because you're basically carrying metal, empty metal. And the way you avoid that or minimize that and get the most efficiency out of your fuel and the most thrust is, ideally, you would shed all the metal not holding fuel. Now, you can't do this by shedding the metal. What you have to do is you use smaller fuel tanks, and you have your fuel lines hooked up in such a way that they all drain they drain through each other towards a central fuel tank. And what this does is you'll have 6 on the outside, 1 in the middle, you could say. And then from the outside in, on both sides, you would drain from the outermost to the next, then to the next, and then you would put both of those into the middle. And what that would do is that would transfer your fuel, keeping the innermost fuel tanks filled up. And then it would let you peel off the first 2, and then all your tanks would be full. And then when the last ones run out, you'd peel off those 2. All your tanks are still full. So what it lets you do is it lets you shed all that extra weight that you're not doing anything with, really. And it lets you get more fuel efficiency. You can see here I'm landing on the moon, or attempting to get into the moon's orbit with my new vessel. But what that lets you do is it lets you leave Kerbin's gravitational field for a lot less fuel. And that's what I was aiming to do. Unfortunately, it still took more fuel than I thought it would. Probably because of this part right here. You see that large orange fuel tank? It probably shouldn't be that large. I should probably have separated that into stages because I'm carrying basically 2 regular fuel tanks. But after I burn through half of my fuel, I'm carrying 1 full one, and then I'm just carrying around dead weight worth an entire fuel tank. So the smaller pieces you can spread your ship into, I'm learning, is better. So if you have 1 giant fuel tank, it would be better to stage off 3 fuel tanks of a third of the size, because as they drain, you can ditch them and get rid of the extra weight that's weighing you down. Here you can see it went away, but I've added more monopropellant to the lander. I've added, I'm trying to get the hang of the RCS thrusters. They're really hard to get working right. I think I have them placed improperly, and it just makes my ship spin, which makes docking really difficult, as you'll see later in the video. But right now I'm lining up to burn retrograde so I can slow myself down and try and get captured in the moon's orbit. I made some changes to the thrusters, you can see. I put them on the outside like I talked about. I added some thrusters as well, added some lights, and I made some changes to the rover. I took off all the RCS thrusters except for the ones on the bottom. And the reason I did that is so I don't have to change the structure of the docking port on the lander. I can just hop the rover up, which actually worked pretty well if I hadn't opened up a little satellite and it blocked it. So here I am coming in on an orbit to the moon. I'm trying to get my periapsis as low as I can. I think anything above 30 kilometers on the moon is considered not suborbital trajectory. I think as long as you're above 30 kilometers, you won't succumb to gravity, because the moon has pretty weak gravity, which actually I've heard makes it much harder to land on than some of the other things. I think there's a planet called Munin or Munis or something. It's like the third or fourth planet out, and it has I think it's a moon of the third or fourth planet, and it has a little bit more gravity, but what that does is it makes you less floaty, and it's hard to explain. Your controls are kind of laggy. You can actually float back up, and that's what I did in landing on the moon. I actually would come down, over accelerate, and I would thrust myself back up, and I'd have to bounce, and doing that wasted a lot of fuel. I'm still working on the most efficient way to land on the moon, or land on any body really, while not wasting fuel. Here I am trying to line up my trajectory to where I'll land as close as possible to the last landing. But what I messed up in is I thought the moon was rotating the other direction. It's rotating to the left if you're looking at it from this ship right now. I mean, I thought it was rotating to the left. I believe it's actually rotating to the right. And what this caused to happen is, actually right now I'm transferring fuel like I didn't do last time. Transferring all the fuel to my lander because I couldn't get the disable crossfeed function to work. But charging that up, and then we're going to get ready to go. But landing on the moon, I was trying to get as close to the previous lander, the crashed lander, and Bill as possible. But what happened was the moon was rotating away from me, essentially. The surface of the moon I was trying to land on was rotating away from me. And what that caused is it caused me to land about 18 kilometers away from Bill and the landing site. But that's not a huge issue. But it did make the rescue mission take forever. That rover, I mean the little rover that's attached to my lander, it maxes out at safely probably 20 meters per second, 30 meters per second. Any faster than that and the physics start to get wonky. I don't know if that's to do with my design or just the moon's gravity not being that strong, but I would hit a bump and I would go flying, and then I'd hit the ground and I would explode. So this actually is not my first attempt. Or this one might be my first attempt, but if you see cuts in the video, it's from me quick saving and then quick loading because I messed up, or I broke the solar panels off my rover, or I accidentally smashed Bill, or smashed whatever Kerbal is landing on the moon right now. But here I am lining up my trajectory, or trying to as best I can, and it doesn't look that far, but you'll see if you watch it, you'll see the landing point actually rotate towards that crater under me. I don't know if you saw that, but what's going to happen is I'm going to land near that crater, which isn't bad. I'm going to land about where my mouse is. A little bit farther than that. But there is Bill right there, and it looks like I'm pretty close. But unfortunately, my camera's just really zoomed out, or I'm really far from the surface, so it appears that I'm really close. But I'm not. I'm actually really far away. 18 kilometers, yeah, that's how long it was. It took me driving on the rover about 30 minutes. I seriously spent 30 minutes driving the rover to the landing site. And then I encountered some more issues. I had my solar panels extended. I was going fine. I had plenty of monopropellant. Everything was going great. But when I had finally managed to get in range of Bill, I picked him up, and then I had to take a break from the game. It was late. It was like 10:30 at night, and I had class the next morning. So I saved the game, quick save, exit the game, whatever. And then today, when I boot the game back up, I go to my rover, and when I get there, Bill's not there. The rover's where it was when I turned the game off, but I'm just missing Bill. And he's not on my space center, or my tracking center, and I can't access the pod anymore. So I'm not really sure what happened there. Here you can see me testing my little jumpers. But I'm not sure what happened there. I think the game might have just glitched. So Bill actually vanished into thin air. And here I am coming back to my original lander that's supposed to take us home. I tried docking the rover earlier, but I couldn't get it to work because the satellite's in the way. And there I was trying to break it with Jebediah's face, I think his name is. But this taught me an important lesson in how much fuel I need. It makes sense that if it takes about half your fuel to land, you'll need twice that. However much fuel it takes to land, you'll need about double that to leave. And as you can see, I didn't have that much fuel. So here I am trying to plan a trajectory out that'll get me off the surface of the moon. And then it hits me. I've never docked in space before. And what that causes to happen is I have no idea what I'm doing. I burn all my fuel way too fast. I don't know how to use the RCS thrusters, which I need to practice with. I have my RCS thrusters positioned improperly. I'm not really sure how to set an intercept trajectory. I'm figuring it out in the video right now, and I get pretty close. I get to about 3 kilometers, 2.5 kilometers, which is pretty good. That's not far. I can burn that distance and make it up. But what I didn't account for is the differences in velocity. As you can see, that's a much shorter orbit than the outer orbit that the, what would you call it? The interplanetary mover, the thing I'm going to dock back up to take me home. I didn't realize that since its orbit was much longer, it would be moving much more slowly. So I'm going much faster than the thing I'm trying to intercept with, and when I get in range, I fly right past it. And I try and burn and catch up to it, and I do an okay job. But then to my horror, here I am trying to fast forward time. I'm making the orbit speed up so I can get it, because every time we go around, I'm catching up to him. There I am, a little bit closer, I'm just closing the distance, and I get pretty close. I think within 10 kilometers before I do any burning, just from waiting out the orbits. But that's not close enough. You need to be 2 kilometers max, I would say, knowing what I know now, because it takes fuel to close that distance. You have to cancel out your transversal to the planet just to catch up with the thing you're trying to dock with. But here's where I get pretty close. I fast forward time and actually get to see the vessel for the first time. But I realize I've used all my fuel getting off of the moon. I have like 68 units, or getting off the moon in between trying to fix this orbit that I have no idea what I'm doing. I have about 68 units of liquid fuel left, and I thought that would be enough. I was super wrong. If any of you have any tips on how to dock things properly, or anything like that, let me know, or if there's a video I can watch, because that's hard. But I think I'm finally about to show the clip where I actually intercept the other part of my ship. Yeah, here it comes up, and I completely fly by it. There's so little hope. I managed to slow myself down enough to get within range of it, and that I probably would have been able to dock successfully if I had any fuel left, but I didn't. Here I am burning towards it. It's not even close, really. It's kind of depressing. But actually, I discovered there's a strange glitch on the way back. I had to make the trip from Bill, or from where I picked up my game and Bill was missing, to my new lander like 5 times, because for some reason it wasn't saving the velocity, or it wasn't generating the terrain properly. But whenever I would get within about 1,000 meters of it, it would just explode for no reason. So what I had to do is I had to get within about 2,000 kilometers of it, go to the tracking station, switch to the lander, make sure it was okay, then switch back, get about 500 meters closer, switch back, 200 meters closer, switch back, and it was pretty frustrating. I don't know what the range is to switch with the bracket keys. Oh, there it goes. And I'm trying really hard to cancel out my velocity, and you'll see in just a second, and there goes all my fuel. Dead in the water. I think I would have been okay if I would have brought more fuel. I think I'm going to redesign my lander completely. I'm not a fan of that design right now. It doesn't have enough fuel, and I could probably hook up disposable fuel tanks, you could say, to the sides and ditch those once I land on the moon, so I have a minimum weight that I have to lift back off the moon. Here I'm trying to burn to it, and while I was doing this, I was like, wait a minute, maybe I can get close enough, and then I can let Jebediah jump out of the lander, and maybe he'll be able to land within distance of the primary vessel. And it almost worked. It was so close. I got within like 100 meters of the lander, and then I ran out of monopropellant. So here's where I think I thought of it. I'm like, yeah, I'll just jump out. That's not that far. 1.8 kilometers, or what is that, 5 kilometers? I can't see. It's a tiny screen. But I thought I could make it, and I almost did. I almost brought the original astronaut back home safely. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. So, as always, thanks for watching, guys. I'm Aaron, and hopefully I'll see you next time with astronauts that are alive and not stranded on the moon. Take it easy, guys.